three, please rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are you okay? Ms. Erickson, will you take roll?
Mayor LaKind,
Here.
Councilmember Romanello.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Here.
Councilmember Abbott,
Here.
Councilmember Kimple,
Here online, and I'll be there in 10 minutes. I'm coming up on the monument exit.
okay. Councilmember Chronic,
Here.
Councilmember Fiorito.
Here.
Yep.
Okay, before us, we have an agenda and a consent agenda. Are there any modifications to the agenda?
Yes. I would like to make a motion to move item 6, resolution A and B to the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? A motion, a second. Ms. Erickson.
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Yes.
Councilmember Kimple,
Yes,
Mayor LaKind,
Yes.
Councilmember Fiorito,
Yes.
Councilmember Abbott,
Yes.
Councilmember Chronic,
Yes.
Councilmember Romanello.
Yes.
All right, that motion passes 7-0. Next up is item number 4, Arbor Day.
Mayor LaKind, do you want to approve the consent agenda as modified?
Sure, we'll do that.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as modified.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Yes.
Yes.
You want me to start over? Okay, we'll start over. Councilmember Fiorito,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Yes.
Councilmember Kimple,
yes,
Councilmember Romanello,
Yes.
Councilmember Abbott,
Yes.
Mayor LaKind,
Yes.
Councilmember Chronic.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that motion to approve the modified consent agenda passed 7-0. Next up, number 4, Arbor Day, Ms. Vandenhoek.
Good evening, Council. You have the proclamation of Arbor Day in your packets. I don't know if someone from the council would like to read the proclamation or if you would like staff to.
Yes. Councilmember Chronic, would you like to read the proclamation? It is on page 7 of your packet.
Mayor LaKind, I believe you have a copy of the proclamation with the things that you
Oh,
signed today as
I
well.
mean, it even says copy to read.
Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas the holiday called Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs and moderate temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees in our town increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now therefore, the Town of Monument Town Council hereby proclaims April 28th, 2023 as Arbor Day in the Town of Monument, and encourages all residents to support efforts to protect our trees and our woodlands, proclaimed the 3rd day of April, 2023.
Thank you for reading that. We do have an Arbor Day event coming up on Friday, April 28th at 10 a.m. at Monument Lake, where we will be planting trees at the lake.
Excellent. Thank you.
And you're all invited to come.
Okay, next up, we have some discussion items. First one is expansion of enterprise zone boundaries and monument. Ms. Vandenhoek.
All right, let me just get the presentation loaded. All right, this is hopefully a quick presentation about the enterprise zone that we have in Monument. El Paso County is the administrator of our enterprise zone, but Sarah was unable to be here, so I'm going to do my best to do her presentation for her and answer any questions that you might have. The purpose of the discussion tonight is we have an opportunity to expand our enterprise zone, so that will be kind of part of the discussion tonight as well. The Enterprise Zone is a program that helps businesses with tax credits. It was created to encourage urban and renewal in economically distressed areas. It was designed to promote a business-friendly environment and to give businesses and taxpayers state income credits for participating in these business activities. On the screen is just a few of the tax credits that are available. I won't go into a lot of detail about these unless you would like to. El Paso County was designated in the 90s, and then the Teller County or the Pikes Peak Enterprise Zone, which is El Paso County and Teller County Enterprise Zone, was established in January of 2016. And that designation is reevaluated every 10 years, but every year they evaluate it. And this year, El Paso County let me know that due to some census tract information, one of our areas in Monument was now eligible to become part of this enterprise zone where it had previously not been eligible. So we think that this is a good thing to look at because this encourages development and businesses to come to our area. This picture is our existing enterprise zone, so it encompasses a lot of Palmer Lake and Monument. And I have to figure out how to get to the next slide. And then this bright yellow parcel between Higbee Road and Baptist Road is the area that's up for consideration. So El Paso County will be bringing this to the state to see if they will include this in our current enterprise zone area. And tonight we're just looking for any concerns or questions that the council might have before we bring this to the state. I can go more into detail about what the enterprise zone is if you would like, but I didn't, in the interest of time, I didn't want to take up too much time on this. Just wanted to make sure that you didn't have any questions about including these parcels of land in the enterprise zone.
Thank you. Any questions from the council about this?
Just clarification on the significance of expanding the enterprise zone.
So this particular parcels is between Higbee Road and Baptist Road. It's along Jackson Creek Parkway. So we know it's right now vacant, but we know that there's potential interest in developing this. So any business that would come and develop has the potential to take advantage on their state income taxes for these tax credits. In addition, nonprofits in this area have the potential to have citizens contribute financially to a project that might be coming to this area. Say, for example, the YMCA might be looking to expand or something like that. So then citizens could contribute to that project and also receive a state income tax credit. So it's a benefit for our community to have this parcel included.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is investment strategy. Mona?
Good evening, everybody. Today we're going to have three financial institutions going over. Can you hear me? So today you're going to have three financial institutions going over the investment strategy. We do have a lot of cash in the bank, and with the interest rates going up, and also in order to diversify or to mitigate the risk by diversifying our portfolio, we want to bring to your attention these investment strategies. Everybody has a different point of view, so you get to see three awesome presentations, and then we can go from there if you have any additional questions. Thank you. So tonight we're going to have Wells Fargo, CSAFE, Piper Sandler. Wells Fargo is going to start the presentation, and I'm going to share it right now.
And just so everybody understands, this is money we have in the bank. It's operating capital, so it's not extra money that we have in the bank. So you can't do projects versus investing. It's money we have in the bank that is used for operating capital throughout the entire year.
And so who's giving the presentation?
So the first one will be Wells Fargo, Katiana.
Yes,
Here?
can you hear me clearly?
No, she's online, and the last one is also online, Max. He's in California, but Bob from CSAFE will be here.
Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. Sorry. I didn't know if you could hear me yet. Thank you so much. My name is Katiana Siatris, and I work for Wells Fargo Securities. I have been with Wells Fargo now within the bond portfolio and investment side of Wells Fargo for the last 17 years. And then I've worked for the company for a total of 19. I am very privileged to work with our public entity clients within our space, within Colorado, within our region as well, so surrounding states as well. Within our purview here regionally, we have 80 public entity clients that we work with directly to help invest funds. Our goal, first and foremost, is always to make sure that you have preservation of your capital. Obviously, investing in strategies that make the most sense for your public entity, and then the third bucket would obviously be help to attain more yield and income for your cash and cash equivalents. So, kind of coming back to the thought of the funds that are sitting idle right now, interest rates you likely know are actually worthy in the present market and environment. So currently, for your cash and cash equivalents, you can easily earn about a 460 or so, 465 on your liquid funds. And so that's something that's really important to just consider, where you can make quite a bit of money based off of your total assets that you have managed and you have at your available disposal should you need them too. So my job is to give you a little bit of insight on what is out there in the marketplace, what other public entities are doing as well, and obviously in the current financial market, also give you some intel about the risks involved with your investing and what other municipalities are doing within your space too. I do work with municipalities in and around the region. I'm fortunate in that way, and so I get to Monument and drive through all the time. So with regards to just the level of risk overall, right, within Colorado state statutes, there are certain investments that our public entities can invest in. They are limited. However, we're fortunate to have a little bit more leeway than some of our surrounding states. So generally speaking, treasuries, government-sponsored entities, which is our agency securities, some corporate bonds that are AA rated or better, and municipal bonds that are AA rated or better. Outside of that, you can obviously invest in things like money market funds that are government funds as well, so that you get the full protection of the surrounding assets that are government assets underlying those funds. So just to give you a little bit of purview, the market is changing every day, right? We put together these slides based on last week's rates, and things are moving week over week pretty quickly. So just for your information, and based off of what you guys presently have and could implement into a strategy, I put together, and Mona kindly is showing the current strategy proposal. So based on 100 million showing up on your current screen there, if you're investing 100% of that 100 million into treasury and agency investments, your estimated annual income is about 445,000. I would say we've actually charted up slightly just based off of the investments within that are showing below. So if you ladder a portfolio, the idea is that you're going to help pick up income as interest rates change. Currently on a 6-month investment that you see within that first strategy, it's showing a 460 rate. And I have to say week over week, we've actually increased about a 470. So it's slightly higher on that 6 and 9 month position right now. However, it gives you just a general good representation. If you're looking at 12 months out, you're about a 460 today. So a little bit higher as well as the presentation. And then the 15-month bucket is about flat to where I'm showing right now at a 430. So all in all, your estimated return on 10 million invested within treasuries and agency securities only is about a $460,000 yearly income base. And so hopefully that gives you just a little bit of an idea of how you can put your money to work based off of that 10 million. And I know just to have a little bit of flexibility, we were also considering just for a side-by-side comparison, if you only put 6 million into a portfolio, what that would look like comparatively to the 10 million bucket. So obviously it's pretty drastic, the amount of annual income you would reduce if you only did 6 million. However, it shows you a little bit of liquidity difference there between your buckets there. So, you can estimate about 270,000 or so if you were to implement 6 million into a laddered strategy. So generally speaking, this is a really conservative approach. Obviously, risk and an appetite for risk right now are top of mind. The bond market has been a very big safe haven for investing presently, right? So with all the bank uncertainty that's happened recently over the last 2 weeks, the bond market is seeing pretty aggressive inflows as clients look to jump into treasuries and agencies that are very, very solid investments, right? And you know that you're going to get a guaranteed return. So that's a little bit of just my purview and my presentation today to give you some ideas of what public entities are doing within our state. There are alternatives that we could stretch outside of just treasuries and agencies, like corporate bonds and municipal entities too. However, for what to get you guys started within a kind of a short laddered approach, the instruments available to you are essentially within the treasury and agency marketplace. So for full liquidity, if you're looking just straight at money market funds right now, those are between a 465 and a 470. So, the idea of locking in some investments is with the thought of if interest rates come down, you continue to get the higher rates if interest rates are changing thoroughly. So having a very good kind of nimble approach and being able to reinvest is important in the current landscape. As far as my general review there, just wondering if the committee has any questions, and I'm happy to help tackle any immediately at your discretion.
Great, thank you. Anybody from the council with any questions for our first speaker?
Yeah, I have one.
Sure.
So with all this talk of bank crises and everything else that's going on right now, under these different scenarios, what's insured, what's not insured? Where's the risk on that if they're, I know Wells Fargo is a big bank, but in light of everything that's going on right now, I guess we have to look at the insurance aspects of it.
Yeah, that's a very relevant question. So with the Treasury investments in our landscape of the Treasury world, we only state an investment is guaranteed when we talk about a Treasury investment. In my opinion, when you're looking at whether you would want to be invested in a treasury position versus keeping funds at a bank and not having anything insured beyond 250,000 FDIC coverage, all day, every day, I would recommend to you investing in treasury and agency investments. And that's simply because, never in the history of the United States has the treasury failed. In other words, defaulted to pay. There are banks that have failed, right? As we've seen in the past 2 weeks, we've seen SVB, we've seen Credit Suisse, we've seen Signature Bank, and several other banks be fairly distressed, right? So there's a reason why money is flowing into the bond market in that way. So the treasuries, to answer your question, don't have anything to do with FDIC protection. They're fully guaranteed by the United States Treasury. So as far as the type of investment, there is no more secure investment than a treasury. Beyond that, the agency investments, you likely know the names, the Federal Home Loan Bank, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. Those investments are kind of a notch, let's say, above in regards to a little bit more yield for what you're receiving compared to a treasury, but very incrementally. And two of those entities are essentially, sponsored by the government. And so from a safety and liquidity standpoint, actually the Federal Home Loan Bank has come in and actually supported the United States here overall for banks needing liquidity. So they've gone to the Federal Home Loan to get those liquidity levels in order to make sure that the market is stable. So from a safety perspective, these are essentially the two asset classes that are quote unquote safest in the marketplace. So your investments would be kept in your name at the Town of Monument name whenever you're holding an investment like a treasury and an agency. So essentially any of your exposure is exposure to the treasury or agency. So knock on wood, Wells Fargo defaults tomorrow, your funds are kept separate from the assets of Wells Fargo. So hopefully that helps keep you kind of sleeping easy at night, because that's always an important thing, and has like a top of mind outlook as far as what, where and how safe your investments would be.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? No? Okay.
I just want to mention today, the majority of our cash is with Wells Fargo. So God forbid if Wells Fargo defaults tomorrow, the majority of our cash is with them, and we don't have we have a lot of risk by having so much money, millions of dollars with just one bank, or not just one bank, but the majority of our cash being with one bank. So if you don't have any questions, I'm gonna turn.
I do actually have a couple questions, and it's for town staff. So where is the bulk of our operating capital now? You said Wells Fargo, but in what form? Is it a checking account, savings account with toaster ovens? What is it?
So it's basically the majority is with Wells Fargo. At the moment, as of February, we have 16 million with them, and it's our, let's call it, checking account. So that's how we pay our bill, how we finance the general fund. We also have for the enterprise funds, we have accounts with Colo Trust. So we have about 6 million, but those funds are dedicated to the water funds, ARPA, which is the American Rescue Plan. So we have restrictions associated
and then my
with
follow-up
those.
to that is, when was the last time the town took its operating capital and put it into treasuries or any other kind of, is this normal? How do we have access to
The reason why
money
we're,
that's locked up in bonds?
the reason why we're looking at doing this now is previously interest rates were below 1%. Today, they're above 4% and getting up towards 5%. So you have the opportunity to make more money. If we would have taken this money and invested this at under 1%, we'd be coming to you and telling you, hey, we're going to make you $75,000 to $100,000. Today, we're telling you that we can invest this somewhere in the neighborhood of 4.5 to 5 and make the town up to $450,000 to $500,000 within a year, and still have it be liquid.
But how's it liquid if it's in a bond? How do you? It has
As
to
you-
mature, right?
As you can see, it's for 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, and 15 months. And so at 6 months, you'll be able to use that funding you could reinvest it. Like she said, we have $16 million in
So
the
it's
bank.
in this latter 6, 9, 12, 15, you
Right.
get
Right.
operating
Roll
goals
over.
back. It won't-
Exactly.
and will you invest all of our operating expenses or?
No,
Just
No.
up to 10 million. We've given
Yeah.
you two opportunities. One is 6 million, the other is 10 million.
Yeah.
And they both have different
and
return
it's
schedules.
split equally. So let's say we go with the ladder approach of 10 million. So we have 2.5 in 6 months, which these funds are still available to us. But if let's say we don't wait for the 6 months, we may lose that interest rate associated with the
Right.
period of time. But that doesn't mean we don't have access to our funds if we need.
And even if we took it out earlier than the 6 months, we'd still make more money doing that than we would leaving it in the bank.
So this is essentially an opportunity for citizen funds and other funds to work for us.
Exactly.
And potentially give us additional funds for additional projects.
Exactly.
We're,
Couldn't said it any better.
We're seeing, I'm assuming, what, 3 proposals for this?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So not to comment, then it would be unfair to comment on this one particular proposal. But what I will say, though, is in general, as an investment advisor and also being on the finance committee of the watershed district, where we do the same thing with the money, we are limited as a municipality as to what we can and can't do. This thing's a totally cush portfolio. Okay. I mean, this is like a no-brainer. And I'm just saying that this is handled the way it should be. And it is definitely something that the town that we should move in a direction of, whichever direction we choose to make more income. It's absolutely a no-brainer. So I'm just saying that.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank
Let's
you.
go on to the second one.
Okay, so Bob from CSAFE, thank you.
Hello, Council. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and Mona and Mike. We had a chance to meet over Zoom last week to go over what I'm going to share with you today. And then prior to that, Mike Farina with the town of Castle Pines actually referred us to you as well. So my name is Bob Krug. I've had the privilege of being the marketing advisor and participant relations manager for CSAFE for over 20 years. And CSAFE basically stands for Colorado Surplus Asset Fund Entity. So we're actually a trust that was implemented by the Colorado legislature back in 1988. We currently have over 450 participants throughout Colorado. We work with just about every municipality from Trinidad up to Fort Collins and the Western Slope. We operate 2 funds, one for your cash and one for your investments. So I believe you have the slide there. CSAFE Cash is essentially, it operates like a 2A7 money market fund. So you have same day liquidity. We manage 3.4 billion in that particular fund. Unlimited redemptions. It's rated AAA by Fitch. And as of the end of February, it was 4.71. As of today, it's 4.90 and heading up to 5%. A lot of the large entities use cash as their primary, let's say, savings fund, all the way from the city and county of Denver to most of the major counties. They'll move money in and out of cash on a weekly basis. Most of the municipalities, and especially smaller municipalities, would look at Colorado Core. And some of the similarities and distinctions would be, instead of same day access, you have next day. You could take out all of your funds just with an email, or you can do it online. 100,000 minimum balance. Of course, we're talking more than that. Core was designed to manage your funds for as short of a term from 3 out to 18 months. It can have up to 180-day weighted average maturity versus cash having a 60-day weighted average maturity Currently, it's around 90 days. It's taking advantage of what the Federal Reserve is doing. So each time it raises rates, both funds are maturing its portfolios so it can capture the next rate up. And right now it's roughly at about 3 billion in pooled assets, also rated AAA by Fitch. Both funds are stable share price. So neither fund floats, and that's pretty important. If you go to the next page, we have a fact sheet that gives a snapshot of where both funds were at from a yielding perspective at the end of February. And then at the bottom of that page, let's see, it highlights the different service providers. So we have 3 basically investment advisors that work with CSAFE. And we are overseen and hired by the Board of Trustees, who are also participants of different entities throughout the state. We have Elevate Business Solutions. That's the advisor firm that I represent. We set up the accounts, and we are the client relations arm of the fund, both funds. Morgan Stanley, out of its Denver office, manages both portfolios. They have a team of 6 professionals. And then we have American Trust. They are the fund administration. They essentially handle all of the wires and accounting of both funds. They are in the DTC area. We're estimating that the investment income would be around 4.96 million. That's if you combine, let's say, half in cash and half in core. And one of the differences of doing.
Excuse me, I gotta correct that real quick. You said 4.96 million. I think you meant 496,000.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Yeah. So what the team does is they are laddering out securities as well, but you are not bound by those maturing. Both funds maintain about a 10% liquidity. So that means that both funds have about an overnight liquidity of around 300 million. On any given day, we might have a net in and outflow of 1 to 2%, just to give you an idea. The next slide highlights the safety aspects of both funds. And we don't have to go through each of these right now, but we have quite a bit of oversight. So we are actually overseen by the Division of Securities. They audit us every year. We provide them a full accounting every quarter. And then I mentioned we're rated by Fitch. We report to Fitch the whole portfolio every week. They take a look to make sure that the different sectors of investments are in line with their criteria. And then we have the Board of Trustees. The investments of the fund are a combination of government securities and AAA rated commercial paper. So that's kind of a brief overview, and be happy to answer any questions.
There's a slide that there's one more, the proposal summary. Can we?
This is the next presentation.
All right. Anybody have any questions?
So I have a question because it's all about risk management. So like long-term securities, are you upside down in long-term securities like a lot of these places are? Like, for example, I mean, Silicon Valley Bank, right? You talked about outflows. They had $1 million a second in outflows on one day, and they couldn't obviously cover that. And so how do you protect your clients in that regard, as far as protecting the money in case we do have some kind of, financial collapse?
Absolutely. So on our website, we actually highlight the metrics of the fund. So our securities are very short term. They're averaging like 90 days, for example. In cash fund, we can go out as far as a year. In the core fund, we can go out as far as 3 years. And right now, we have everything is inside of a year. What happened with the Silicon Bank? They were in mortgage-backed securities. Those are extremely long securities. So we can't even invest in those.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So the last presentation is going to be from Piper Sadler and Company, Max.
Are they presenters?
He's joining from California, from their office. Yes.
We also have Nate Eckloff from Piper Sandler here. If you remember, he also helped us sell nearly $20 million worth of bonds for our water projects.
Max, you can unmute your mic if you can hear us.
Drew, can we unmute him? I asked Drew to try to do it. Yeah. Nate, do you think you can take it? We do, actually. IT is not
You
my
can
strength.
Disconnect his mic, reconnect it, unless it's a laptop. You can exit the meeting, try to come back in.
I mean, we have his presentation. Nate is here. It's a similar approach. We have two scenarios, 10 and 6 million. And the investments are in the same, in treasuries, AAA, AA plus securities.
Drew, can you pull his
Presentation.
up on the screen?
I think I'm still sharing, but do you need me to unshare and then share again, Drew?
All right, while we have technical difficulties, we'll just pause for a second while we try to get our presenter.
Actually, I can see Max.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
There you go.
My apologies. Sorry, this technical difficulty. So I'll restart. Mr. Mayor, council members, Mike and Mona, my name is Max Mojab. I'm with Piper Sandler and Company. I work closely with Nate Eckloff and his team in our Denver office. I am part of a team that primarily works with municipalities to help them with their investment and cash management needs. I think as it was well covered, and you probably have heard in the news, the risk related to uninsured bank deposits has been a hot topic since the Silicon Valley Bank collapsed. And our team has been very busy working with our public entity clients, answering questions, and proposing solutions to safely invest portion or most of their uninsured deposits. I start with a summary of this proposal as you know, as it was mentioned, this is primarily U.S. Treasuries. U.S. Treasuries is the full faith and credit of U.S. government. By definition, they're the most secure type of investment and also the most liquid type of investment. There is no limit on how much you can invest in Treasuries, unlike FDIC insured deposit that is 250,000. Treasuries, you can go up to billions, and that's what central banks, that's what states, counties, municipalities, large corporations, everyone who wants to make sure that they have their investment guaranteed by the U.S. government invest in U.S. Treasuries. Now, there are a lot of questions. What if we don't pass the debt ceiling and so on, and U.S. government could potentially default on its debt? But the chances are very limited, and I think in any situation, we would pass our debt limit, and U.S. government would honor its debt obligations. And you know, I always pose this question to anyone that, you know, what if you win the lottery tomorrow and you have $1 billion in your bank account? There's no way you can break $1 billion in 250,000 and go to different banks and try to have it all insured. There are not enough banks to do it in U.S., but you could invest in U.S. Treasuries and have that type of insurance. You have the U.S. government behind your cash. And in this environment, a lot of public entities are looking for solutions outside of the bank deposits. And as the other two proposal also indicated, U.S. government securities bond market is the answer. It's approved by Colorado and the state code to invest in U.S. Treasuries. There is no limit on how much a municipality can invest in Treasuries. Unlike other investments, there's always a percentage cap. Treasuries are unlimited for the reason that it's full faith and credit of U.S. government. Now, Mona and Mike wanted us to come up with two different proposals, 6 million and 10 million. The idea is to ladder them out, have a portion go out 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, and 15 months. So every 6 to 3 months, I will be talking to Mona and Mike and say, look, you have $2 million that's matured. What is your liquidity need? Should we reinvest it for another 3 months, for another 6 months, and so on? And that gives that flexibility to look at the cash flow every 6 months or 3 months and consider reinvesting it. And these, once you invest in a bond market going out for 6 months or Treasury 9 months, those rates are locked in. And why is that important to lock in a rate? Because right now there's a big talk of potential recession coming. And if there is a recession, rates would go lower. And that's what the bond market is predicting. In fact, after 6 months, the yield curve is inverted. So there is some value to lock in a rate for 12 months, 15 months, even if we're going to a recession, because you know that you are guaranteed that rate. And even rates go lower, you've locked in that rate. So that's, I think, one idea, to use the bond market rather than a money market fund, so you can lock in your rate. This proposal has, for the 10 million and the 6 million, the rated average return is about 4.6, and the rated average maturity of this portfolio on both 10 and 6 million would be less than 12 months. Now, why is it important to have a short weighted average maturity? And that's because the liquidity portion, the shorter your bond, the easier to sell it prior to maturity and less interest rate sensitivity. So, and this is a very short proposal. I mean, your maximum maturity is 15 months, but your weighted average maturity is about 11 months for this portfolio. The estimated revenue, I mean, obviously market moves on a weekly basis. This is as of last week. On a 6 million is about 247,000. On a 10 million, about 410,000. And this is on 11-month basis. I did not annualize it. If you go to 12 months, the estimated return would be higher as you add an additional month of revenue to it. All the securities, all these U.S. Treasuries would be in the name of Town of Monument. They would be safe kept at Piper Sandler. And even if Piper Sandler, heaven forbid, goes down, and we are not a commercial bank, we are an investment bank, we don't have any deposits. But even if that happens, these securities, these treasuries are under your name and they would be safe. Funds would be available to wire to Town of Monument bank account on a same day basis if there is a maturity or if they sold prior to maturity. So if there is some liquidity crisis, we could sell a portion of it for same day or next day and wire it to your bank account. And and as we go to the next page, I think if Mona, can we move on to the next page, please? So it talks about, again, the idea of U.S. Treasuries having the full faith credit of U.S. government. It's approved by the state code. Longer dated maturity bonds, typically over 5 years, have interest rate risk. I think to the point that Silicon Valley Bank had mortgage bonds going out 30 years. So 5 years is the maximum maturity that the state code allows public entities in Colorado to invest in. And in this proposal, we're not even going to 1 year, it's 11 months. So I want to address that concern that, you know, what happened to Silicon Valley Bank and other banks, the interest rate risk caused because of the longer maturities. The two portfolios that we are proposing, they're both less than 12 months, and the interest rate risk on them are very limited. And I think if we go out to the page that you're looking at, the investment strategy, this is showing the actual treasury bonds that I propose to invest in. So if you look at 1,500 is 1.5 million going out to September 14, 1.5 million going out to December 28. That is the 6 months, 9 months maturity range. So these are the actual securities that we are proposing. And I think it's important to look at these bonds because that's where the money is going to, and these are the actual maturities. Now, obviously, this is for 6 million, so we're breaking it to 1.5 million, 1.5 million. If you go to the next page, we have the same maturity days, the same treasury bills, and we just increased the size for each maturity. So now we went from 1.5 million to 2.6 million, 2.5 million, 2.6, 2.5. So we're not changing much between the two proposals. The treasuries that we are using are the same. We're just proposing a larger portion to go in each maturity to get to that 10 million from 6 million. The average yield doesn't change. The average weighted maturity doesn't change. Still under 1 year, still very short duration and very low interest rate risk. So this is, I think, a lot of public entities are looking at these type of ladders for their uninsured deposits. And this is what we are working with a lot of public entities in the state of Colorado and across the country. Any questions about U.S. Treasuries, interest rate risk, liquidity, or these proposals?
Any questions? It doesn't look like we have any questions. I do have a question for staff. What direction do you need from the council to proceed with making a decision on the direction you want to go?
So what we're going to do is we're going to go back. What we're hoping to do is that you'll approve us tonight to go back and start negotiating with these three providers. We're looking for highest return, lowest risk, lowest fee structure. We're looking for your approval to negotiate with these three providers and come back to you with a final investment strategy proposal for you to approve.
Yeah, so there's nothing written. It's just all in favor of.
You're just giving me direction to go forward, and then we'll bring it back to you probably in 2 weeks. Looking probably to bring it back to you in 2 weeks.
Okay, anybody have an issue with that?
Yeah.
All right, you have your direction.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much to those that provided us the proposals and information. All right.
Thank you.
C, land use zone preemption legislation. Before we begin on this, I just want to say that I'm going to open it up for the public to be able to come up and comment on this, both online and in person, if you have anything you'd like to add. I know it's a little unusual for that to happen. And at the end of the discussion, I've got one, I think. Yeah, I've got one. Oh, yeah, Max, you can disconnect whenever you're ready. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Yes, thank you very much.
And then we have a letter that's prepared based on our discussion that we'll pass around to sign if everybody on the council is in agreement. Let me start off by saying that Mayor Pro Tem King and I sit with our lobbyist every week to go through probably about 50 bills that are before the state legislature. And this one just recently came out, and of course it hit the news because of what this bill does. I hope all of the council members have had an opportunity to read through it. I hope you didn't break anything in your homes when you read it. But the gist of it is that Senate Bill 23-213, which is a land use preemption bill, would basically negate all the town's codes and zoning as it pertains to real estate and land use. And so I'd like to hear from my fellow council members as to their thoughts on this. I would like to allow the people to speak if they've had a chance to read up on it. And yeah, we'll keep it to let's see if we can get this done by 7:45. So
I would just say heinous overreach, and that's about all I have to say. Just to keep it simple in an effort of time. I'm diplomatic.
I agree.
okay.
It's overreach. It's way beyond the pale. I have no idea what they were thinking.
Well, I have more to say.
Well, let's hold you off for. We'll hold on you.
I just think, yeah, I'll second and third what's already been said. It just takes away any power, any responsibility that the voters have given us, and sends it to a centralized entity. Choosing my words carefully. And we all know, as a history person, as a student of history, centralized anything has rarely worked. And I'll leave it at that. I'll stop.
Senna, you have anything?
Nothing wonderful comes to mind. I definitely feel like it negates what we tried to do proposing the home rule charter. Definite overreach, nothing that I'm happy with, and I think we should fight it. So that's my 2 cents.
Ken?
No, definitely do not agree with the plans or what the suggestions are, what they're trying to ram and jam through. So hopefully, not just us sending a letter, but a lot of other, from what I've read, a lot of other towns, cities, and municipalities are doing the same thing. And hopefully, folks up in the state capitol will listen instead of, turning their head looking the other way and trying to go forward with this. So I do not agree with what they're trying to do, and I'm more than happy to sign the letter to have forward up to the state saying, no, I am not in agreement with this.
All right, well, before we unleash Mayor Pro Tem King, he and I,
You have a time limit.
he and I had the opportunity to speak to Representative Wilson. Unfortunately, Senator Lundin was unable to attend, but we were pretty much given assurances that they also are siding with how we would be looking at and blocking this bill. One of the things that I hope our guests and residents online would understand that if you've had the opportunity to read the bill and after you've heard this discussion, it is imperative that you sign up to testify against this. Whether you are in person and you have the opportunity to go up on Thursday, the 9th, is it? This,
One bill is Wednesday and the other
well,
bill
yeah,
is
there's two
Thursday.
bills, but this one in particular.
This one's Thursday.
This one's Thursday, or you can sign up online and testify during a Zoom call. It's critical that we stop this from happening. It's going to impact every home rule municipality, city or town. Counties are not impacted. And since I know you've got things to say, you get to read the letter to everybody too.
Okay, well, I'll read the letter after I
Right.
talk about this. So for those who don't know what this is, and I'm sure there's several people, this is Senate Bill 23-213. This is Governor Polis's top agenda item. He wants to create more housing, a massive amount of more housing. And he wants to create a one-size-fits-all for all municipalities. Now there's a couple of tiers, so I say one-size-fits-all, but the gist of it is all the same. He wants to make property a use by right, regardless of water issues, infrastructure issues, desirability, lifestyle issues. None of that matters. We became a home rule community so that we could navigate how we want our government to operate. This is a direct assault on home rule. There's two ways to overrule home rule. One is a constitutional issue. The other one is a matter of statewide concern, which is what they're hanging their hat on with this, calling it a matter of statewide concern. Problem is if this gets passed, then anything is up for grabs as far as a matter of statewide concern. This is a local issue. This should be decided by the residents of the individual municipalities. People move to areas for reasons. People move to cities because it's easy for them to get around on bicycles and work and everything else. People move to small towns, rural areas like we have around us, and they move there for different reasons. We don't have a giant workforce here, and we probably never will. So we're basically a commuter town. If we are forced into creating these empty parcels that we have left, and the ones that are already zoned, by the way, into a use by right, then really what we're doing is we're creating more traffic, more commuters, more pollution, more gas use, because it's a one-size-fits-all strategy. So I like to look at unintended consequences. But I guess before I get to that, the land that's currently zoned, and there's different tiers. Now, this is a bill that hasn't passed yet, so this is a little bit of a moving target. But we have property around the town that's zoned already, and some of it is PUD, which planned unit development. They have their own rules and regulations. It's like their own zone district. And then we have other property that's zoned for specific uses. None of that will matter anymore if this gets passed. So as far as unintended consequences go, one of the things that he wants to do is allow on all single family lots, the use by right to create duplexes, or if there's already a house there, to create ADUs, which are accessory dwelling units. Accessory dwelling units would be a separate structure, probably in the backyard, could be a garage, could be a basement. It's a use by right. And while I'm not entirely opposed to ADUs, you know, some people want to have a mother-in-law apartment or their kids move back home and they have a separate structure in the backyard. This overrides all the zoning regulations and the homeowners association regulations. So homeowners associations don't have any say in this either. Those ADUs can be a minimum of 800 square feet or 50% of the size of the house. So everyone remembers a few years back when all these investment firms were buying up single family houses and speculating on the value and creating rentals out of them. Now they can create two. So they can buy a house, build an ADU in the backyard. Now they have two. There's no regulation against this. That's an unintended consequence. Again, if you bought a 4,000 square foot house, you could build a 2,000 square foot ADU in the backyard. So you, in essence, have two houses on one lot. One of these investment firms was Invitation Homes. They're off the East Coast. They had a portfolio at the time, and this is a couple years old, worth $16 billion. And the company collected $1.9 billion in rent per year. That means it took them 8 years of rental payments to pay back a typical house, which is why they did it. And in some places in the Atlanta market, they bought up to 90% of the available for sale housing units in some of those zip codes. That can really easily happen here and would be a use by right. Also, what would stop any developer, and this could be even a small developer, from buying up 5-acre parcels and putting triplexes on them? So you have property that's zoned 5 acres, doesn't matter. By the way, water infrastructure doesn't matter. Water rights don't matter. If there is not an availability of water, the state requires a plan to force the municipality to figure out what they're going to do about it. Same with roads, all infrastructure, fire departments, police, everything. It's all on the municipality. Again, this isn't passed yet, so this is what's being talked about. This bill is set up to create more housing in the thought process that rents would come down. Yet every large city that's desirable, New York City, LA, all those places, they build and build and build and build, and rents go up. Denver is no different. And in Denver, in 2022, rents rose 14.7% over the previous year, while supply rose to over 21,000 vacant apartment units. This is not about getting rents down. There are giant Wall Street firms that own all these apartment complexes. The top 50 largest nationwide apartment owners own 2.5 million units, which is 44,000 on average. And the top 10 have hundreds of thousands. So if you notice that there's not condominiums being built and haven't been in 20 years, mostly. There's a few that have popped up here recently. They've made some reforms on this. But the reason is there's a thing called construction defect lawsuits, and they're class action lawsuits. What made these attractive, and this came about in the late 1990s, what made this attractive is that in a condominium, you don't own any land. You own the airspace inside the unit. The HOA owns all the land. So the HOA could sign off on a class action lawsuit, and these attorneys would sue the builders before the warranties ran out. They sued everyone. Every single condominium builder in the late 90s got sued. They all settled out of court. The insurance companies all settled out of court, which basically means if they really needed the stuff that they were being sued for, they didn't have the money left over to fix it. All of these condominiums, all the townhouses, all the single family houses, all the apartment buildings, they're all built off the same building code. They have the same labor, they have the same materials. condos and multi-family buildings, larger ones, all have architects and engineers, and the engineers do a lot of the inspections, and the building department does the inspections as well. So you have to wonder why no single-family homes had class action lawsuits, no townhouses had class action lawsuits, no apartment owners that had people build these apartments for them had class action lawsuits. This was all about settling out of court and basically inventing construction defects. So all the insurance companies quit insuring these. They so developers had to be self-insured, and nobody was going to do that. So they haven't built any. They changed the law about 5 years ago as a reform to require that 50% of the HOA owners would have to sign on the lawsuit, but it's still only 50%, and still insurance companies won't insure, and still nobody wants to take that risk because it's a big giant risk. So you took out the first-time home buyers out of all of these projects. Now, I get it, they look kind of like apartment buildings, and some of them look exactly like apartment buildings, but you have people that can start. You can get into an FHA loan with 3.5% down. Your payment is most likely going to be less than rent, because rent right now is on a 2-bedroom, 2-bath is $2,300-ish on a newer property. You could get in there for $2,000 or less, and you could have a roommate, and you could get your rent down to your payments down to maybe $1,300. That gives the opportunity for first-time home buyers to establish a little bit of equity and buy something nicer in the future, move up the ladder, create a little bit of wealth, or people that want to downsize, but they don't have that opportunity anymore. And there's nothing in this bill that's addressing that. That's true affordable housing without being subsidized. And that isn't even being discussed because there's a attorney lobby, trial attorney lobby that donates a lot of money, and they don't want this, and it doesn't get discussed. I mean, if it does get discussed, it goes out quickly. I'll try to knock this down. Yeah, no, I understand. This bill also talks about transit-oriented areas. Fixed rail, which, we have running through Monument. There's a half-mile boundary around any transit station if they put a transit station in, and it's massive density, like 40 units per acre. If you see the apartments that are around town that have been built recently and the ones that have been around, they're 20 per acre. So you're going to be doubling that. We're also on a transportation corridor, I-25, and that can be, again, this hasn't passed, up to 40 units per acre as a use by right. And we can't do anything about it. We desperately need people to get involved in this, because who's going to regulate us isn't going to be the people sitting up here any longer. It's going to be the Department of Local Affairs, and they have a lot of authority to modify, building codes and land use and everything else, and we have no idea where this is going to go. So we need everybody to get involved. This has got to be like the church meeting a couple of years ago, kind of getting involved, or we're going to get run over, and we're not going to be able to control our destiny here as a municipality. So that's what I have to say about that.
Thank you for that. Sure. Councilmember Abbott, you sit on the Pikes Peak Regional Building Department Advisory Council. For those that don't know, PPRBD is our building department. We don't have our own. And so they're the ones that issue majority of the permits of what would get done in the town, along with our own permits. I would like you to reach out to the powers that be there to find out what side of this bill they're going to be on.
Absolutely.
They are technically not impacted by this. They like to build. they issue permits. And so the more permits, the more revenue they generate for their own group. So yeah, if you could find that out, that would be great.
I'll talk to Amy.
PPACG, the Area Council of Governments, has already put out a statement that they're not going to be in support of this. I believe the water districts, because they will be impacted by this, by the sense that they will have no say in and the no water tap fees either. So new developments come along, they will get no money for their own infrastructure needs. Yeah, so let's go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, let's quickly read through this letter. Oh, yeah, public comment. Anybody from the public that would like to speak or ask questions? Come on up.
Did not. I just read that article from Common Sense. Did you see? And I agree, anything that says common sense, I don't agree with. But I thought there was a lighter version of this bill where there was some capability of the town. There was some direction from the state, and then the town would be able to select, you know, where and how that they would
There-
potentially meet some of the guidelines that were established.
There's two options within this bill. One of the options is we comply. And one of the options is we don't comply and we have a different set of rules applied to us. And it really depends on what we're considered as far as, where they put monument, as far as the transportation outlet, as well as some other stipulations. But yeah, so there's a light but
So
it's
if you don't
still
comply, it's the light version.
No, if we don't comply, it's the state.
the state's version.
But we can
If you comply. you get-
tailor make
Okay.
within boundaries. But it can't be less restrictive than
More
the-
restrictive.
or
Okay.
more restrictive, right? It can't be more restrictive than the state mandated program. And there are different tiers. So there's 3 different tiers. There's tier 1, which is, bigger cities, tier 2, which we kind of technically fit into, but what worries me is we have railroad tracks and we have a freeway running through our
And park and
town.
ride.
And then park and ride too. So how they're going to put us into that mix is unknown. By the way, this is, like I said, this is all done through the Department of Local Affairs. So they can modify this at any time. This just has to be DOA. I mean, this,
okay.
and whether or not it will be, they have some support. Surprisingly enough, they have support of the mayor of Boulder, which shocks me beyond belief. But because Boulder's probably the hardest city in the state to build anything in.
Well, yeah, because they limit.
But it's the mayor. I don't know what the council thinks about it. And I know for sure that the residents there are not going to be in favor of
Okay.
this.
Okay.
So
Thank you. You answered my question.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, we have someone online that would like to speak. Could you move Gina Fatora up, please?
Hi there. I just wanted to say that I absolutely do not support this bill. I would ask the council to draft up a simple, clear direction so that, our residents know how to action this. Obviously the simpler, the better. And I am happy to assist in getting the word out. I just want to put that out there for you.
Thank
That's
you
it.
very much. Well, okay. Well,
Come on up.
hang on a second there. Can you, is it possible to get some of this information up on our website with all the links so that we can get the word out to citizens on where on CML they should be clicking on to testify, things like that?
Definitely.
Thank you. Okay.
So Brandy Turner, you said the 9th and we can't find a 9th that makes sense. So the 9th of who?
This Thursday, whatever this
This
Thursday is. I
Thursday,
could be wrong.
as
with the
in
date.
a couple days from now.
The 6th.
Okay.
Sixth.
Upside down.
Yeah.
Okay,
6th.
so they're looking for people to testify in a couple of days.
Correct.
Okay.
Would be in the Senate hearing committee.
Right.
This would not be the House yet. It has to go through the Senate committee first. And if it passes, it would then go to the House and we could testify again. There'd be multiple opportunities, but the goal would be to kill this in the Senate and then it doesn't get to the House.
Okay.
Right.
And I know quite a few people, it sounds like online as well, are willing to do that if we have a little direction, because I've never done it before. So I would like to, but I don't know where to start.
We'll
So
make sure we get the information
thank you.
published.
Okay. And then a lot of Steve's points, besides the fact that I was a home rule commissioner and believe very strongly that we know what's best for our community. One of the things that's really bothered me as I'm reading through this information and talking to Steve about pros and cons of what's going on is they're not fixing the problem. And the problem of increased rents, people not being able to purchase starter homes. You can't get started. You're either, there's nowhere to start in Colorado. So we have taken away the ability for those starter homes, the condos, the little townhomes, the small 600 or 700, 800 square feet, which seems tiny houses. We've taken all of those away from the people who are in the market to purchase those, to start to build their wealth generationally. So you buy that house, you sell it, you buy something bigger. And that is what really bothers me, is that it's not taking care of the problem. It's causing a bunch of building that's likely going to be rental homes. And we've talked about rents. The rents are going up. New York City has a plethora of rental homes, but their rents are not low. So that's, from my perspective, what bothers me, is they're not addressing the problem. They're trying to throw some solution at it that doesn't think about the bigger picture, the longer term, for people to actually have the ability to build wealth. That's what my concern
Well,
is.
one thing is for sure, these investment firms that are publicly traded companies, national apartment owners, they know exactly how many people want
Yep.
to relocate to Colorado.
Yep. How
And
much they'll pay.
they will keep these rents up because it's also has to do with cap rates on these buildings. The way that the rent structure is, it affects the values of these buildings. They would rather have some units sit vacant than lower the rents. So there's no reason for them to lower the rents. The
Doesn't fix
only way,
affordability at
the
all.
only way to lower rents is to have condominiums. So for example, we have roughly 2,000 units coming into Monument at some point. If half of those were condominiums, now you have the condos in direct competition with apartments. So either the rents need to come down or the sale price of the condos need to come down, because there's only one reason somebody goes from an apartment to a condo, and that's because the payment's less. And they'll,
Besides the fact that you've purchased something
Right.
that you can build equity in.
Right.
And that equity then turns into a larger house, and you're building community, you're building wealth.
right. And if you did a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, your payment is the same, unlike rent.
Right.
For as long as you stay there. So, yeah.
So that's what bothers me
They've completely not addressed that issue.
at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else online? Oh, we got, go. Sorry.
Paul Bellinghausen. So we've heard a lot of why it's a bad thing, and most of everyone's in agreement. And it seems the whole panel is. But what I haven't heard is, what are you guys gonna do? What are you going to do to represent it? Sir, we're all sign up, but are you talking to other home rule towns or towns that are being affected, and are you going in as a block to try to say, hey, we're going to do this? That's what I was kind of trying to hear from you guys, and I haven't heard that yet.
Well, I've been holding that off. So, well, actually, you know, there's only so much we can do outside the scope of being sitting up here. For sunshine law violations, we can't be having meetings about this together outside the scope of this. However, I have spoken to other mayors. I intend to put together a coalition within the El Paso County region, along with any supporting agencies such as PPACG, Pikes Peak Regional Building. I know that Mr. Foreman is reaching out to the Colorado Springs Chamber of Commerce. I'm hoping that our Chamber of Commerce is going to side with the council and come, because the Colorado Chamber of Commerce is all for this, which is very strange. But I want to form a coalition as a block to let the governor and the state legislature know that we don't support this, right? And I will go as far as to say on record that as far as I'm concerned, and the other council members would obviously have to, if we get to a point with a resolution, but I will not comply. And if PPRBD sides with us and they decide they're not going to comply, it's going to be really hard to get permits pulled to build anything, let alone what the governor and the state legislature are proposing.
So, and
Right,
also
and
to address that, I'll be testifying on Thursday
As will I.
and remotely. There's only so many people that can fit in that place. And, we have a lobbyist in that we also share with Fountain. And so Fountain is also, on the same page with us. And, you know, again, as Mayor LaKine said, we're going to try and build some coalitions of other Front Range communities, because there's a lot of them that are totally opposed to this. I mean, nobody wants to take away their local control, and nobody wants to be told this is how you will operate your city or town.
Okay, hang on one second, Terry. We got one person online. I'd like to get to them. Mr. Anderson, can you move Anthony Abler up? Mr. Abler, you can go off mute.
Yes, it's actually Abler, but that's okay.
Abler.
So I'm actually curious on what is because you had mentioned how you are going to be forming a coalition with other mayors that basically feel the same way that we do. What about our state representatives? Where do they stand on all of this right now?
So our state representative for HD 20, which is Don Wilson, stands with us, is against this bill. I didn't hear it directly from Senator Lundin, but through our lobbyist and Representative Wilson, it would appear that Senator Lundin is also against this bill. I would expect that the other mayors that are against this will reach out to their state representatives, such as HD 14 is Rose Pugliese, and then there's some other ones that are out there. I don't know them all, but they would be getting their take on this as well and letting them know how they feel and their communities feel.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, Terry, with the last comment.
Terry Hayes, Tri Lakes Chamber of Commerce and EDC. Obviously, we're all against this. I'm not going to rehash everything that you guys have said. One thing I do want to let you know, which I'm hoping your lobbyist has let you know, if you've looked at the group of people that have opposed this, half of them are not opposing, they're amending. Because what we were just told today is the chances are this version is not going to pass, but a version is going to pass. So they are throwing the construction defect issue as an issue, saying, hey, you get rid of this, we'll back you on this other thing, because you're right, that's been going on for so long that most people have not. So that's part of the consideration a lot of people are doing. There's not a feel that it can be absolutely 100% defeated. It's going to be changed. And I will tell you, the Colorado Chamber of Commerce, my personal opinion, having spoken to them, they are not for it, but what they did was they polled their members, because they are a membership organization just like we are. And what they are hearing is a lot of the businesses are under the impression, I'm not going to give my opinion on this, but they're under the impression that this will help in staffing, because staffing is still 100% the number one problem with most businesses. So they're hoping it's going to bring more people into the area where the businesses are if they have transportation costs or transportation problems or whatever. I just kind of want to explain where they were coming from, as they are a membership, so they went off of what their members did. But we are definitely against this, and it's just going to be interesting to watch what other versions come out from this. I was told today we are probably a tier 4, which only affects ADUs, but there's a lot up in the air as
I
to
haven't,
which-
I haven't even heard about a tier 4. The last one I saw was tier 1, 2 in rural something or other.
Well, I saw a category thing of tier 4, which if that's true, and there's still a lot of ifs, even talking to legislative people, they're still not sure. People are scrambling today because they've done this very fast. And I think they did that on purpose. But if that's true, it only would affect our ADUs. Not that that's good, because it's not, but if that is the case, that is. So we're trying to get some more answers tomorrow. But just let you know, of course, we're standing behind
Yeah,
you
we're
guys.
meeting with our lobbyists tomorrow at 7 with Fountain. So we'll hear if there's any updates.
And we don't, obviously, we're not an organization big enough to have our own lobbyists. So any information you guys want to share with us so that we can share with our businesses also would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, thank
Thank
you,
you.
everybody, for who
Thank you.
participated. Do you want to just read it?
Okay. So this is our statement that we're going to send out. Says to whom it may concern. As duly elected representatives of the citizens of Town of Monument, Colorado, we want to fervently declare our opposition to Senate Bill 23-213 regarding land use authority. When it comes to matters that should be of local concern, specifically related to land use authority, SB 23-213 has been characterized as an attempt to provide affordable housing while in fact is a sweeping attack on local decision-making authority. This is both an attack on home rule authority and an unfunded mandate as it requires the town to expend what would be an inordinate amount of funds for studies that will not actually solve the problem that the bill purports to address. Our community will be directly impacted by the components of this staggering legislation by eliminating our ability to zone multifamily housing to locations where the infrastructure is in place to provide the necessary services, removing our discretion to place certain criteria on multifamily housing, such as parking requirements, along with other infrastructure improvements necessary for the high-density development envisioned by the bill. Allowing the character of our neighborhoods to be destroyed by forcing incompatible land uses directly adjacent to single-family homes, mandating expensive studies relative to housing and water resources, much of which is already duplicated in existing local planning documents. Shifting the burden and responsibility of what would have traditionally been local decisions up to a state agency, thus removing local accountability to voters. This entire bill reflects the state's beliefs that it knows far more what's best for the quality of life in our communities than our own citizens do. It removes decision-making from the people who are impacted by those decisions and shifts it to a bureaucracy entity that has no vested interest in the town of Monument, our family, or our character. For these reasons, we strongly ask our legislators to reject the state government power grab. And, you know, one other quick thing I'll make on that is regarding parking. Our parking regulations no longer apply. It's up to the developer to decide what parking is needed. And when it comes to ADUs or other multifamily on single family home lots, there is no additional parking requirements with that either. This is just a terrible bill.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for participating in that. We're going to move on to public comment. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. Those that are online, if you raise your hand, we'll get to you after those that are in-house here. Is there anybody here that has a public comment that they would like to make? No, anything, and not on the agenda. Ms. Hayes?
I know most of you have been contacted by Portia about our annual dinner that's happening a week from Friday, and I believe we have some of you signed up, but I just would like to encourage you to come support our businesses. This is our annual awards event that we award businesses, nonprofits, volunteers of the year, and it would be great to have our local elected officials there to support them. So Portia, it's April 14th. And it's going to be at the Marriott, the one that's on Tech Center Drive, just off of Corporate Drive.
It is prom theme, so you have to get a boutonniere and prom dress. I know.
I want the light blue suit
Good luck.
with
I've
the
been looking for
ruffles,
one.
you know. My prom date in 1980 was that. So anyway, so I just would encourage everybody to attend, bring your spouses. It's a fun day. And we like to just celebrate our community. So you'll get back to Portia. That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else that has a public comment? Okay, anybody online? Mr. Anderson? Okay. We will close the public comment. We have no council authorization items. Any council member comments tonight? No, seeing none. Yeah. What?
Just a couple of quick comments. Number one, I just want to show my appreciation and thank staff for all the work and everything that they're doing. Number two, I know that the council members know why I walked in the door late, but for the audience and people keeping track or score, whatever you want, just to be open kimono. I was online while I was driving back from Pueblo because I had to attend a court appearance because I'm going through a fostering to adopt. So I had to appear in front of the judge with the youth that was placed on our home. So that's why I was late. So I apologize. Lastly, I would like to commend the gentleman in the back. I think this is not the first time that you've been sitting here, young man, going through these meetings. I appreciate you coming in. I think you're working on a merit badge potentially. So I applaud you for that. Thank you for participating and let us know how we can help you achieve that. So good on you. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Way to embarrass him. Wow. Okay, any other comments from the council? Okay, what we've all been waiting for here. We are going to be going into executive session. When we come out, we will have some things to review. So for those online, you'll be sort of disconnected from us while we're in the executive session. For those of you who are here, you will be. Are we going upstairs for this or are we staying here? Well, if we stay here, then we have to kick them all out. Yeah, we can call Bob on the phone.
Bob's on here, but we can call him on the phone if you need to. Because we
Are
have
there
all,
people who plan on staying here after the executive session? We don't know how long it's going to take for those. This is the executive session is about legal advice regarding a report of the investigation findings dated December 28th. I'm sure some of you remember that day.
I've got all about it.
It's just a couple days. It was the day we returned all our gifts. Yeah. So you can stay here. We'll go upstairs. That's fine. And we'll call Mr. Cole, our attorney, upstairs. Someone want to make a motion to go into executive session?
Wait, but
You gotta read into the executive
Yeah,
session.
we're going to read into it.
All right, so I'll make a motion to go into executive session pursuant to CRS 24-6-402.
Hang on, folks.
Sub 4, sub B, for a conference with the,
We're still conducting business right here. Can you just, for a second?
for a conference with the interim town attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions relating to the report of investigation findings dated December 28, 2022.
Second.
Got a motion and a second.
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Yes.
Councilmember Romanella,
Yes.
Councilmember Kimple,
Yes.
Councilmember Chronic,
yes.
Councilmember Farito,
Yes.
Councilmember Abbott,
Yes.
Mayor LaKind.
Yes.
Yep.
All right, motion passes 7-0.
Text me, because I just stopped what I was doing and said, oh, excuse me, let me stop this for a second. My neighbor's calling.
So keep it great. So that's also really bad. But it wasn't the worst, I guess.
I mean, it is old. It's almost sort of point, so like, you have to get the batteries and laugh, right? Or what?
Kinda. I mean, if my kiddos didn't go to school up here, I probably would. But. And Scott. Yeah. Yeah. I'll still be here at my mom. Okay, we'll look for you. Hey, or not. I'll totally be here. That's all I have to wait.
Okay, Mike, are you ready?
I'm ready, sir.
Tina, are you ready? Drew, are you ready? All right. We have come out of executive session. We have one more matter to discuss, item 11A. Leave it up to the council to see if there's anything that they wanted. This is an action that came out of the executive session. And I'm going to recuse myself from this conversation completely due to the financial nature of the matter, that it directly impacts me.
Do we want to have a discussion first? Or?
Yeah. So, yeah.
Second.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, you discuss first, then you. So she's the second.
Yeah, we could discuss it, but we could discuss it now too. So is there any discussion on the matter of, what is that? 11A. Nope, you look like you're ready to say something.
Yes.
Yes.
I am in favor of the motion that is about to be made for the following reason. We all, everybody in here, sat through last year, the end of last year, and the debacle that ensued. And I think there's one person who really made a difference and stood up and did the right thing. And therefore, I am in favor of the motion.
Okay, I'll add to that and just say that we were a town without an attorney. And there was no quick remedy to get an attorney. at the time, and there were attorneys that saw what was going on in the town that wouldn't come on board and represent us, and everything happened so quickly. And Mayor LaKine took it upon himself to handle that situation and keep the town out of some legal problems that we most certainly would have been involved in. So I also have no issue with that section 11A.
Well, and then as a result of the information brought to light in the executive session, I'd like to make a motion to approve payment for legal services to Sherman and Howard for services associated done with the review of the I'm tired, the FCPA, the FCPA issues.
Is there a second?
I second. Everybody second.
Ms. Erickson?
Councilmember Fiorito,
Yes.
Councilmember Romanello,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Yes.
Councilmember Kimple,
Yes.
Councilmember Chronic,
Yes.
Mayor LaKind.
Can't vote.
Oh, sorry. Councilmember Abbott.
Yes.
Motion passes. You want to unrecuse yourself and
I'll unrecuse myself.
end this meeting?
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.